Welcome to Synchronicity. My voice is better than it's been. Those on the Patreon got a treat of me doing the weekly reading with a true RFK Jr. voice, but this one is just a recovering vocal cord fried voice. The joy of having children is you pick up actual sicknesses. Not to say that you can't get sick if you don't have kids, but I remember all of the colds, viruses, whatever, infections, whatever they are. Before I had kids, I wouldn't count those as being sick. The shit they pick up at their schools or places of wherever are fucking insane. And I would not wish them upon anyone because it's a fucking nightmare. So you are going to listen to me cough and sound like this for this episode, and it's all good. No big deal. It's just, it is what it is. It's going to be a longer episode. I am breaking this up into 2 episodes. At the halfway point, I don't know when that will be, I will shift this over to a Patreon episode. That's how we're doing it this week. I think that's how we're going to do it, not for every episode going forward, but for some of them. I usually release the bonus episodes on Patreon on Tuesday, but I'm taking this opportunity to change that up a little bit. So now the regular episodes will come out on Wednesday as they normally do, and the bonus episodes will likely come out on Thursday, maybe Friday, probably Thursday. I don't know. Don't hold me to it. This is just how I am. Sometimes I say stuff and I don't do it. It's the way it is. Yeah, whatever. I've gotten used to it. It doesn't mean that I'm doing something wrong. And if you're one of those people who says they're going to do something and then you don't do it, that's fine. Or maybe you say you're going to do something and then you only do it for a little bit. That's also okay. It's no big deal. We're moving into a paradigm where you don't have to always do everything that you say you're going to do in the exact way you say you're going to do it. How often does that happen anyway? And if you're one of those people who does do that, good for you. Aren't you special? Wonderful. So we're going to talk about many things in this episode. We're going to continue the conversation on drugs, substances, being frequencies. I mentioned it in the pretty long intro for the episode last week with Justin Wolf and New Brew. You can go check that out if you don't know what I'm talking about, but you probably do. So we're going to be talking about that, but I want to talk a little bit about the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction that we just had, as also the Scorpio full moon. There's some stuff there as well. So this Uranus-Jupiter conjunction, if you're not into astrology, what are you doing here? This is what we talk about sometimes. This is a very powerful astrological phenomena, right? So what this is we have the planet of expansion, Jupiter. If we're doing archetypal astrology, that would be Zeus, our good friend Zeus, and the planet of great dramatic sudden change, Uranus, right? And that would be Uranus. That's Zeus's grandfather for those doing the archetypal stuff. So what's a conjunction? Conjunction just means that planets are in the sky aligned with each other perfectly on the exact same degree. And so what this means is that the energies of those planets are amplified. And that means that we have expansion and change being amplified. We can see this pretty clearly. This shows up in many sectors in our lives, depending on where these planets may fall in our chart. We can get some insight and clarity into that. But also for nations, for cultures, for the world, right? One of the things also, can we talk about how hilarious it is that I was like, TikTok is going to be this thing. It's amazing. It's giving you a real opportunity, which it still is. I'm monetized on TikTok. It's pretty great. I have a page that's closing in on 100,000 followers. It's pretty nuts, I got to say. No, it is not my personal page. It is another page I run. And now the TikTok ban bill got snuck in by Congress because it was attached to aid to Ukraine and Israel. And so then the Senate signed it, and then President Biden, don't we just love this guy? Isn't he such a good president? He's super cool, right? Totally with it. Not old, not the Crypt Keeper. Really happy. I'm sure everyone who voted for him, you really nailed it. So he signed it into law. So now TikTok has 9 months to sell, divest, or basically give up TikTok, right? ByteDance is the parent company, and then 3 months like a grace period. Now, what's interesting about this is in 9 months, we may have a new president. Now, it may not be the president that you want. Sorry. I know we're not getting into the whole Trump thing. I'm trying to do a slightly better job of not infuriating everyone who who listens to the show, just maybe like a small subset of people. My two hottest takes that have been widely panned by, I mean, these show up in reviews, they show up in emails, they show up in many different ways, exit surveys. Trump, people don't like that I thought Trump was funny. And vaccines, people don't like that I said maybe we shouldn't be taking the vaccine that just came out for COVID when it just came out. Those were not popular takes. Had a purge of people who were like, I love everything Noah's saying about imagination and being masters of our own reality. Oh, but I hate him now because he said things I don't agree with. Cool. Yeah, this is just a sick episode. I'm sorry. It's the way it is. I don't know what else to say. But it's just interesting that after I was hyping up TikTok, this has happened. But what is interesting is Trump may, even as the person who kind of originated the TikTok ban back when he was president, maybe the person kind of vetoing this bill that was passed. My thoughts on the TikTok thing, because you asked for them, I just heard you saying, hey, Noah, what are your thoughts on this thing? I probably don't even give a shit about. I'm glad you asked. My thoughts are that TikTok is maybe a spy arm of the Chinese Communist Party, and China has banned almost every social media company and app from their native phone apps. Like, you can't access any of those things. So it's not crazy that the United States would want to ban it. That said, it is kind of fucked up. It is kind of fucked up that a lot of people use this app for better, for worse, relatively freely with impunity to kind of like basically get whatever they want to get out. And there are people who have incomes related to this. Now, you could just say, well, they'll just move to Instagram or wherever, but those are, you're kind of like making it easier for those companies to succeed when you eliminate such a widely popular app. TikTok will not be sold, right? They can't sell the intellectual property by law in China to a U.S. company. They're not going to give them the proprietary algorithms to do that. So that's not really an option. So it is really a TikTok ban. Regardless of how you feel about TikTok and maybe it's eroding or corroding the minds of people who use it, I certainly have a complicated relationship with it and have had, it's been clear that it's very addictive, this short form video content. It's not always the most productive. Doom scrolling absolutely is a thing. But when a government comes in and says, you can't use this, I don't love that in a place that purports to be kind of free. Now, you may say, well, we know the United States is not really as free as it appears to be or would like to appear to be, but still, it's like kind of intrusive. It's not great, right? And this is something that was passed very quickly, kind of through the cover of night, through both the House and the Senate, and then signed almost immediately into law by Biden. That should give people some concern that something that was basically just like drafted up a few months ago is now a law, and bipartisan support. That's not great. It's not really how things should work. There obviously were a lot of people who were not in support of this, constituents and people. And so it's a weird thing, but this goes into the theme of like great change expanding. Now, I don't view this as necessarily like a bad pessimistic, like, oh shit, the government is overreaching. It's going to be this horrible thing. We're going to lose all our rights. Roe v. Wade was overturned, all this stuff. I don't think that's really what's happening. I do believe that we are being asked to re-examine our relationships with the powers that be, the centralized locus of power of a federal government, of corporations, of systems, of policies, of laws. We're being asked to examine them. Am I saying we should have anarchy in the streets? Am I saying we should be protesting and, creating our new civilizations in our utopian hippie realm? No, you can do that if you want. That's totally okay. That's allowed. It's totally allowed. I'm just saying we're being asked to examine, are these policies and laws and cultures and systems that we want to live in? And that's a healthy thing to do, to ask that question, to examine things. There's really not a downside to examining things in life, really, truthfully. It's not like, oh, I examined this thing and my life got so worse. Now, it may appear to get worse if the thing that you examined was destructive in some way. It was harming you, and then you have to change it, and then your life changes, or maybe it gets harder or more difficult or whatever it is. That's totally possible. I'm not saying there can't be suffering or, disappointment when you examine things, but generally examining things is a good thing. It is bringing more light, more awareness to certain areas of your life or society or whatever it is. I don't know what you're examining. Go examine whatever you want, okay? But basically, this is an example, the TikTok thing, of really re-examining our relationship with how things work, right? How laws come to be, what freedoms we should have, what should be chosen. Am I going to die on the hill if TikTok should not be banned? No. Ultimately, I don't really give a shit. I mean, it's cool if TikTok went away. It's not, I won't be on TikTok all day. And the truth is I'll probably be on social media less because I don't really fucks with Instagram so much. Instagram kind of sucks. It's okay. Basically, everything you see on TikTok, Instagram that you like anyway just came from TikTok. Someone just ripped it and posted it. So, like, whatever. So that's an area where this Uranus-Jupiter thing is really taking place. Another area is in our own personal lives. You're being asked to look at areas of your life that are ready to expand, but also come with great change. And with great change, again, can come uncertainty. And uncertainty is rarely comfortable for those who go through it. You don't know what's going to happen. Who likes that feeling of not knowing? Not in like a curious, playful way, but in sometimes a way of like, oh shit, I really have no fucking idea what's going on. Does anyone have any idea what's going on? I don't know. Maybe not. Uh-oh, that's kind of scary. That type of vibe. But in order to kind of like access our own inherent freedom, power to create, be, live with, appreciate, we do need to kind of look at things and ask whether there needs to be great change. And sometimes we know what that is. Sometimes we're looking at our lives and we're like, I feel out of power. I feel like I am not accessing the best parts of myself, that I'm not following through on the things that I feel like would be fulfilling or make me happy or bring more joy into my life or more peace or equanimity. I'm not doing those things. So a change needs to take place. And when we recognize that a change needs to take place, we'd like to think that we'd immediately take the right action and just get on that thing and just do it, right? Wouldn't that be great if we immediately took action on the things that we knew would be better for us? But that's not always how we are. Sometimes we're like that, and that's great. But sometimes it takes us a little bit to really kind of put together the steps or to get the confidence or move through fear or whatever it is, certain threshold guardians to get to that place. And during that period, it can be, again, uncomfortable. I have tried to say as clearly as possible that you need to be gentle with yourself. You need to be able to really kind of allow yourself to be forgiving first with yourself, then potentially if you want to extend that to others or other circumstances in your life, other people, relationships, by all means. But being hard on yourself is just, it's not the vibe. So let's talk about like how that can actually show up in your life. Let's say you have an intention of, I'm so sorry, I'm going to cough this one. You have an intention of like thinking positive thoughts, right? There's nothing wrong with being positive. Now, forcing yourself to be positive when you don't feel positive, that's not so great. Don't do that. But you try to think positive thoughts. But let's say an intrusive thought comes in and it's just like, you suck. You can't do that. That's not possible. You don't have abundance in your life. No, you don't. Look at what's going on around you and you think you're abundant. Okay, right? That's one level that we have that thought. Now, the second level is we go, oh shit, I'm having that thought. Right? There it is. And this is what we think is like the truest high, like, wow, we've meta-analyzed that we're now having this thought. So we go, this is me. This must be me. This person, this witness who is observing this thing and usually making a judgment about it, let's be honest, that's the me, because not the thought. That's not the me. But this person, this mind that is having the awareness that I had that thought and making some judgment about it, that's really who I am. That is not you. Okay? That is also not you. Okay. And in some way, yes, all of these things are you. Let's not get into semantics. But what I'm talking about is like your truest expression of who you are, which at the end of the day is basically just like a ball of fiery light of unconditional love and awareness. But really, we don't really, when you look in the mirror, do you see that? I don't see that unless I'm on a lot of psychedelics. Usually I don't see that when I look in the mirror. I see myself. Or who I view to be myself in the physical realm, I should say. So that judgment that you make for having that thought, you self-identify with. You say, okay, well, this is me because I've recognized I've had awareness of a thought that I shouldn't be having, or doesn't feel authentic, or is being mean to me. But you accept in that awareness that you that was aware of that thought is you. The truth is, I don't know how many layers more you need to go, or more meta-analysis analyses you need to do, but one step more is a good place to at least start to center your consciousness, which is that is also not me. That judgment, that awareness of the thought that I do not prefer right now is also not me. From that place, you can start to use the power of atonement or forgiveness or whatever you would like to call it, love, unconditional love, which is, oh, there's a part of me that isn't feeling great right now. And there's another part of me that is judging me for feeling not great. The best thing I can do from this third level of awareness is just extend calm, peace, love, forgiveness, right? We'll see if I edit these coughs out. Chances are I will not, but deal with it. I'm sorry. It's a free podcast. So that place is where we're trying to get. Try not to give up or just accept that second level of awareness that there's a thought that's not in resonance with what you prefer, or maybe what you're trying to manifest or imagine, whatever you want to call it. Timeline jump, reality creation, quantum time, whatever the fuck the kids are calling it these, playing the video game or whatever it is, breaking out of the matrix, whatever term you would like to use. We often will think, because we recognize one level of awareness kind of above where our initial thought came from. You've heard the phrase that your thoughts are not you. Well, they both are and they aren't. But also the part of you that recognizes the thoughts that aren't you, that also isn't you. And now even that third level of awareness that's like, oh my gosh, I'm my higher self, I'm going to extend love and forgiveness and just be chill. It's also not fully you. It's very difficult for us to conceive and comprehend truly what we are, like in our totality. We can get glimpses of it, but to live in that as a physical being almost seems like that's not the point, as far as I can tell. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. That's not why we have a physical dualistic experience. But anyway, I just want to point out that you don't have to get caught in these levels of awareness, because when we get caught in them and when we get trapped in them, that's when judgment tends to come in. Well, I shouldn't be feeling like this, because if I feel like this, then I'm doing a bad job of keeping a healthy mental diet, which makes it harder to manifest, and I'm just no good at it. See, I knew I wasn't good at it, and there's more evidence. That's just like, that's a game. That's a game you're playing. It's a story you're telling yourself. It's a narrative you're conceding to. It's neither any more true or less true than any other kind of energy you are resonating with, any other frequency. But we tend to perceive it as quite real because it feels real. The narrative that we're telling ourselves, the story in our heads, is very convincing. And I hesitate to call this level of awareness ego, just because I feel like it's so easy to shit on the ego. This is been something I'm relatively consistent on for the duration of this podcast and when I've been speaking publicly. Like, I'm not an ego basher. I think the ego has certainly, I can recognize in my life, fuck some shit up, fuck some very high vibe and consciousness states up pretty clearly. But I'm not going to go like shit on the ego. In the same way, like if a dog, you have a puppy and it like shits all over your house, like you're going to go like be like, this dog is fucked up. This dog is a piece of shit. Like, this dog is broken. Should I go beat up this dog because it's shit in my house? No, train your fucking dog. It's on you. Be a good dog owner. I've unfortunately come in contact with too many bad dog owners who are like, I don't know why he's like this. I don't know why. It's like, because you didn't train your fucking dog. Like, this dog doesn't know any better. This dog's going to do what a dog does. Your ego is going to do what an ego does. Don't shit on the ego. Don't destroy your ego. Don't try to kill your ego. You can experience ego death. That's fine. Take psychedelics, meditate, whatever you need to do. That's fine. Experience what it's like to be egoless. But to think you're going to beat your ego into submission, no, Your ego is also not an idiot. It's not as stupid as you would like to think it is. It may act like a child sometimes. It may act not from its highest place sometimes, your highest place, but it's not an idiot. It's actually pretty tricky. It's pretty smart. It's pretty clever. It can really make you think some things, right? So just like maybe not the best approach to just be like, ego's dumb and bad. I'm going to get rid of it. Our ego's so stupid. What a bitch the ego is. Good luck. That is also, by the way, the surest fire way to show you that you have an unhealthy relationship with your ego, and most likely you're operating from a place of ego. That's how tricky the ego is. You saying that the ego needs to be subjugated, subdued, killed, dominated, it's your ego. Like, that's the trick, right? So that's why we don't approach the ego, or really hopefully anything else with that degree of judgment. That's what the ego wants to do. It wants to make judgments, not because it's fucked up, because that's how it works, right? Like there are parts of your body that work a certain way, right? Your knees bend, enabling you to walk and bend and like lean over. I don't know. What did the knees, bend and shit? Really bad example. But basically, parts of your body are designed to do things. Parts of your consciousness are designed to do things. We don't shit on the ego for doing what it was designed to do. And you can say, well, the ego is more tied to the amygdala and the lizard brain part of us, which is just fight or flight. And, we shouldn't just be operating from that place. Sure, totally agree. But we don't say that like the amygdala is like a flaw. We're not approaching it like, we're not trying to rip out our amygdala. You would die. You need that. It's part of your brain. It's the lower brain, but you need it. You can't just have a prefrontal cortex and live as a human. Sorry. So it's a part of us. We acknowledge that. We learn how to develop a relationship that is healthy, that honors it, but also doesn't allow the ego to dominate us. That's fair too. A healthy balance. So as it comes to this expansion, there's a lot of kind of awareness happening about the way we think, about the way we feel, about the narratives we consent to. That may lead to uncertainty. It may lead to conflict. It may lead to periods of what we would call a trough, or the ebb part of the flow. Now, the way you kind of move through ebb parts of the flow is by accepting there is a lesson here for you. You have self-prescribed a particular lesson that is manifested in your 3D reality, in your consciousness, as something that really, let's be honest, sometimes isn't so fun. May involve suffering, may involve pain, may involve fear, may involve shame, may involve doubt. Okay? We don't love those things. We should love them, but we don't enjoy those things because they're not fun. They don't feel as good as like the dopamine and endorphin rush of like, being in flow and operating from our creative center and really just like honoring who we are as beings. It feels not so great to be out of power, but that's where we learn the most. I tweeted and then put it on the Instagram because that's what the kids do these days. The game isn't to seek out the good and try to escape the bad, right? What it really is gracefully accepting and moving through and with what is being reflected back to you. And the key word there is reflected. What you perceive in this reality that feels so real, so fucking convincing is a reflection of your inner state. I've said this many times. It is not a unique thought. It is not something that I came up with. It is an experience that you live. When you touch that, when you feel that, when that is your lived experience, it is an undeniable truth. It's why I speak about these things with the level of conviction I do, because it's just like, someone doesn't have to tell me water is wet. I don't need to be explained that. I don't need to go through the technical reasons why that is the case. It's something that you have experienced, to be true. It's true. So when you accept that your inner state is forever and constantly being reflected back in this physical reality, it should give you a clue in how to augment, change, warp, whatever you want to call it, the outer world. And of course, this is cliche. It's trite. Every, 12-year-old with an iPhone on TikTok is going to tell you how to manifest this, that, and the other thing, because we are now realizing that our inner state of consciousness is what is creating the outside world. Now, it is also like really clear to a lot of people that the opposite is true. Okay. And that's a paradox, and we live in a world of paradoxes, and, sorry, that's just how it works. So the outside world clearly has like causality going for it, right? You do this, you do X, and Y happens, right? You do Y, Z happens. There's this chain causality that takes place. You stub your toe, owie, it hurts because you stubbed your toe. I'm not denying that as a mechanism of this reality. What I'm saying is to kind of pre-generate experiences is really contingent upon your feelings, okay? Your feelings are essentially a frequency, okay? A frequency is a state of consciousness that you perceive, that you touch, that you either embrace or push away. What we try to do with our imaginations, as Neville Goddard would call it, our subconscious, as Joseph Murphy would call it, whatever mystical term you subscribe to, is augment our internal state. Meditation is a popular way of doing this. We recognize our thoughts are somewhat ephemeral. They're transient. They're not as solid as we typically would like to think of them as. So we clear our minds. We do one-pointed concentration meditations. We do loving kindness meditations, whatever they are. And we kind of direct our thoughts to a certain way. And we note what is happening. It's basically a form of data analysis. Right? I've been talking about this with coaching clients. Can we recognize when things feel incorrect? This is how affirmations work. Affirmations don't work because you say something and you've cast some magical spell and then it's destined to come true. It'd be cool if it did all the time. They work because you get a data point of how real that feels. If you say, I am abundant and living in a state of grace and harmony, and your mind pops up and says, bullshit, well, you got a piece of data there. You have something that says, I am skeptical of this. I lack sufficient faith. Faith is not a religious thing. I say it every time. Loyalty to the unseen world. You lack enough loyalty to things you cannot perceive in this world. That's all. You just have to find a way to kind of like establish some faith. Repetition is a very good way of doing that. Repetition turns into faith, turns into expectancy. Boom, you've got yourself a little manifestation recipe. Okay. So we're talking about frequencies, and we're talking about kind of how to move into those, and feelings are our gateway. When we feel a certain way, how many times have you felt that something was going to happen and then inevitably, oh my God, that thing happened? Isn't that weird? If you look at your life and you knew you were going to get that job, or you knew that person was going to break up with you, or you knew you were going to go to this place and you didn't know how, or you got this inkling and you kind of, it's weird, right? You had that feeling, that intuition, whatever you would like to call it. That's how things happen. Okay. We've established the baseline for frequencies. We've established that things are expanding and things are taking sudden turns. Great. This is the end of this episode. If you would like to keep listening, go to the Patreon. The second half of this episode will be there. It's patreon.com/synchronicity. I think I've given you a pretty good overview. The second half will be there. I will see you over there for the second part of this. All right.
Just fine.